Welcome back. This is Chip Byers, your instructor for ANY 150, and we are on part 3 of making the chair, and we're going to talk about the structure of how to create something that looks round, especially in gaming, and keep it low poly. So again, this chair has been combined, but the idea is to add sections. And how do we do that? We can add sections and then move vertices around to get the curve. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're going to work with the base, the bottom of the chair first, kind of give it some curvature. I really don't need to follow the reference anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to turn my chair on that I've been working on. And I'm going to show you guys how to isolate things without having to put it in layers. So normally you would have to put all the stuff in layers and turn it off and on. You could do that, or you can just do Control 1. So you select the object that you want to isolate. Okay, basic isolation. So Control 1 will isolate everything except for that part here, and you can see that I've got my pivot point kind of down too low. It should be pivot point should be at the center. Let me do Control, hold the Control key and the 1 to get it back to showing everything together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to click on the center pivot point. So that will center everything all together. So instead of doing it one by one, I select the whole thing and do center pivot, and that will do the whole entire, all the objects that have been selected. Okay, this is a little shortcut. All right, now we're going to go ahead and isolate that. Control 1. All right, I'm going to go to the top view, and you notice that really the Control 1 only works in the viewports you select. Okay. So it doesn't really matter that I can see everything else unless it gets in the way. Then you can do Control 1. Okay, and that will isolate it. And then you hit Control 1 again, we'll bring it back. Okay, so I'm going to do Control 1, CTRL key, and the 1 key. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the Shift key down and then right mouse select over it. Hold the Shift key down and right mouse select at the same time. Hold the Shift key down and then click on the right mouse button. Just hold it down, the right mouse button, and you'll see this. Okay, this is another marking menu that will allow us to insert a loop. There's multi-cutting, there's a sculpting tool, the target weld tool, the fill holes, pen and polygon tool, soften and harden edges, and if I go in here and I can go back, that will bring this back again. Okay, you can see how that works. So when I click on that, there's another round circle. I can click on that again. That takes us to extrude, smoothing, and all of these tools. Now the thing is, we're going to learn these tools not all at once because you'll forget everything. You won't retain anything. So we're going to just work on a couple tools. So we're going to click on Insert Edge Loop Tool. You'll be doing that a lot. And from the top view, you can see it says Isolate Top Y. Okay, we still can go to any of the viewports, but what we want to do is work on the top. Okay, we're going to start at the center. Okay, click on that, and then we're just going to evenly slice this up. So if I were to take this and slice it up even more, I would go from here to something like here, here, and then here. Okay, and do the same thing. So we got 1, 2, 3 sections, 1, 2, 3 sections, and it doesn't matter if they're perfectly aligned or not. Hit the Q key to get out of the tool, the Q key. Okay. All right, now I can just double click on it. And what happens when you double click on something, it goes all the way around. That's called an edge loop. Okay. And you'll hear a lot about edge loops and how they work as we progress into all these modules and modeling and all that stuff. So right now, again, we're just learning how to model things, simple things, and then we'll work on the harder things. So now, again, I'm going to just kind of take you through how to kind of get everything evened out here. So I can double click on this line here, which basically will select the whole entire edge loop across, which makes it easier to move around. Okay, so if I go to the side view and I hit the W key, I can move that around, which is kind of cool. I'm going to move that around, just kind of situate this. Again, I've got to double click on it. If I only select it once, it won't select the whole edge loop. As you can see, it messes things up. Okay, so you've got to double click on it. Okay, double click like that. You can hit the Q key, click off, and we'll deselect it. Double click on that, and we'll just move that over. Okay, right. So you can just double click, move it over a little bit, just kind of even these out. And I like doing this manually. You learn a lot from doing things manually. And I'm going to go into the front view or perspective view, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit the Control 1 again, which unhides everything. Okay, and that looks pretty good. All right, there's a couple ways of modeling this still. And again, if you see that we've got nothing in the scene, just do hover over this and go to Control 1, and that will open, that'll unhide everything. Okay, so from the side view, okay, there's a couple things we can do. We can double click on these edge loops like this, okay, and move them down like that. Let's go Control Z back. Okay, we don't want to do that. I want to do vertex. So right click over it and go to vertex, and we don't want to move this because that would misalign this part here. So I'm going to select all these guys in the middle except for the two on the outside, and just move that down just slightly like that. And then I'm going to marquee select the next three, leaving out the other two, okay, and move that down. And then at the very end here, I'm going to select the very center, and you can see that I'm marquee selecting, so you get all of them. If you just click on this one and hold the shift key in this one, you're only going to move the ones in the front and not the back, and you'll get some bizarre looking shape here. Okay, and it will look misaligned. So I'm going to go Control Z back, Control C back one more time, and then I'm going to marquee select it and select them both. Now again, I want to keep it nice and smooth. If I go down too far, it's too pointed. Nobody wants to sit on that. So just keep it nice and smooth. Okay, nothing pointed, keep it nice and smooth like that. And that looks good. So we got nice smooth bottom of the chair. Okay, now let's go to the top. Here's something that a lot of students are like, well, you know, I could go in here and add edge loops to every one of these and do the same thing with this, but to save time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, just one of them, okay, and go in here and go ahead and select it, and I'm going to hit the Q key, and I'm going to go to, again, the front view, hit the A key, there we go, and zoom in, or actually I can hit the F key. And now I'm going to do the same thing and break this up into 1, 2, 3 pieces. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, it's good to practice, so I'm going to hold the shift key and the right mouse button down, go into insert edge loop tool, and go from the center. Okay, click on just the edge here. You can see how I'm clicking the edge, click on the edge, and just kind of get those equaled out. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. We could probably do a fourth one on here, like that. That's good. And we want to hit the Q key and right click over and go to selection. Okay. And from the, looks like the top view, okay, again, with the object selected, I can do Control 1 and just isolate it, right? And so I'm going to go to vertex mode, and I'm going to marquee select just the outside pieces and just move them in slightly and do the same thing, but skipping the other two, So I'm just kind of moving that in. Marquee, select the next inner ones, and then the next ones, and so on and so forth. Okay, until you get a nice, something nice and round. Now, I didn't do so good here. There we go. And you just can, and if you don't think you did good on a certain piece, then you can go in there and marquee select them like that and just move that in. You can see that I didn't do so good here. And I need to pull this back a little bit like that, and pull that one back a little bit like that. So get a nice curve, but not too crazy. Okay. So with that done, I really don't need these because I don't want to do this again and again and again. I just want to duplicate that up. So I'm going to select these. I'm going to go into object mode up here right under the main menu bar. Click on that guy. And we are going to select these. I'm holding the shift key down. When you hold the shift key down, you can add to your selection. Okay? So with that added, I'm going to click on, under the layer editor, I'm going to click on this guy right here, the marquee that says create a new layer and assign selected objects. And I'm just going to add that to this and name this extra under our extra panels. Okay. I'm going to keep them there. Okay. And I'm going to hit a T next to it. I'm going to click on that to T so I can still see them, but they won't render, and they're not really, you can't select them. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this guy right here, go to the side view and do a Control D and move it up. And because I have that in the background, I can just replace it. I'm going to hit Control D again and move it up with the arrow, and then Control D and move this up so the bottom matches the bottom. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to right click over it and go to vertex mode and select these vertices and move them up. And there we go. We have our chair completely finished. Okay, I'm going to turn that template off. Just click on it again. There we go. And I'm going to turn off extra panels off so that turn off the visibility. That way we can't see them. There we go. And so we got nice rounded pieces there. All right. Now this is a chair without arms or anything, so we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about adding edge loops in here because we really don't want to curve those. Okay. So the chair is pretty much done. Again, feel free to explore. If you want to do a different chair, you want to model something different for a chair, the shape-wise and everything, I think you have enough instruction to be able to go on your own with the chair if you want to create your own little chair. Okay, and I'm okay with that. All right. If you want just want to do one just like mine, that's cool too. All right, so I'm going to turn on my table and turn off the template, and we can see my table. I've got it on reference now. If you look over here, the R means reference. That means I can't really select it. So if I have it on, I can't really select it because it's called reference, meaning that I can't select it. So I'm going to turn that off. Okay, now I can select it. So here's my table and chair. All right, the next thing I want to do is we want to do a dish. Okay, now I have a dish that's I've already modeled, but I'm going to use that as a reference to see what it will look like. So I'm going to turn the template off, and you can see this is what the dish looks like. Okay, I've got it on reference. Unfortunately, I can't select it. That's another thing that gets me sometimes. If I accidentally forget that it's on reference, I can't select it. I'm like, why isn't that selecting? You have to turn that off. Okay, so all this dish, believe it or not, is a cylinder. Okay, that's all it is a cylinder. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make that. So I'm going to turn that off. Okay, I'm going to create a cylinder. So we're going to get a different shape for a polygon. Okay, this is called polygon primitive. And I'm going to move that up. Okay. I want the bottom to be on top of the table, like that. Okay. Just a couple of things we're going to do to this. I think that would make it a little easier to model. Is I'm going to go into inputs. It's in the channel editor. If you don't see it, do a Control A until you see the channels. Okay. And here you see what you created is showing under the input. So I'm going to click on polycylinder 2. And you can see that this can be moved. So highlight, just kind of run over it and it'll give you like an arrow and just lets you move that down if you can't see this. Okay. So we can add divisions to this, divisions in height. So if I highlight this and hold down my middle mouse button, I can move it back and forth and this will divide for me, which is kind of cool. If I don't want that, I can just go back to 1 again, hit the 1 key, and that gets it back to where it was. Now the subdivision caps is what I'm going to do on top. So I'm going to highlight it, hold the middle mouse button in the viewport, and I'm just going to do 1. Okay, just 1. That goes with the top and the bottom. Okay. Well, the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to edge loops, okay, and I'm going to hit the Q key, and I'm going to just select, double click on just one of these edges, and that will make an edge loop all the way around. And then I want you to hit the R key, and in the middle cube here, select with the left mouse button and move your mouse side to side. Make it smaller or bigger. Let's make it bigger. Okay. About something like that. That's good. And then we're going to right click on it and go to selection. Okay, hit the Q key. There we go. And the next thing we're going to do is we want to extrude this down. Extrude this piece down. How do we do that? Well, we want to select all the faces. So I'm going to right click over and go to face mode, click on face, here we go. And we can hold the shift key down and select each one of these individually. Okay. There's a faster way of doing this. Okay, I'm going to click off. I'm going to go to paint mode. Okay, paint selection tool. Okay. And your brush might be too big or too small. So hold the B key as in boy. Hold the B key down and with that key, the B key held down, use your left mouse button to move your mouse side to side, and that makes the brush bigger or smaller. You want the brush to be about the size of the polygon or the face, and click on, so you can click on it and paint it. That's much faster than selecting them one by one. Okay. The nice thing about the paint tool is that it doesn't select anything on the back. Okay. Now, if I were to go hit the Q key again, it takes you out of the tool. Okay, I'm going to click off. But if I go in here and go, why don't I just go like this and select them all like that? Okay, you can, and it does work. That marquee, like doing your marquee. But watch what happens when I swing to the back. It selects all of these extra stuff and even things on the bottom. Okay? It doesn't have back face culling. That means you can't select anything from the back when you're looking at this view. Okay, so the painting is the best route. So click on the paint tool and just highlight them like that. There we go. And if it's not doing it, then make the brush a little bit bigger. So that would seem to be a little bit harder to do. Hit the Q key again. I'm going to paint them again. I got the brush size a little bit bigger. Now it's really easy to paint them. There we go. And I'm going to look around the objects to make sure I don't have anything selected. Okay. Hit the Q key again. This time I want you to go to Control E, which is extrude. Okay. You can also, again, don't do this right now because I've already extruded, but you can also hold down the shift key down and that should go, and that you can click on extrude 2. Okay. So I'm going to move that down. Okay, I'm going to go to the side view, or the front view, and I'm going to continue moving it down with this arrow here. I don't want to go all the way to the bottom. Okay, just above the bottom, which is right here. And that's as far as I want to go. So this makes kind of a cup or a glass type of situation here. All right. So now what I'm going to do is hit the Q key and right click over it and go to selection mode. And then we're going to go ahead and scale this down. Now when I hit scale, it's just going to scale like that, which is fine. Okay. But what if I want to scale from the bottom? How do I do that? So I'm going to Control Z back. There we go. I'm going to hold the D key down. Okay, the D lets you move the pivot point. So I'm going to hold the D key down, click on the top arrow, and just move it down to the bottom, like that. And then let go of the D key. There we go. And now I can scale to, so it just kind of follows the bottom, like that. Which is pretty cool, right? And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click and go to vertex, and I'm going to move this down like this, something like that. And then from perspective view, I'm just going to rotate around so I can see what I'm doing. And now I'm going to scale that like that to make the nice ornate bowl. There we go. So there is our bowl. Believe it or not, that's pretty quick modeling there. It's pretty neat. Now, if you notice that you have edges that are really faceted, then you can go select the edges, okay, like this. And it's probably faster from the top view. Let's go to, there we go. And zoom in here, and it's probably easier to do this. So you can go in here and select them and hit the Q key. Hold the shift key and just kind of select them like this. A little bit at a time. Be careful not to select anything else. Continue selecting them. Marquee, select them. There we go. And you can see I got them all selected here. You may want to select these too. It's up to you, but I'm not going to do that. So I am going to want to smooth this. So this is what I mean by faceting. If I hold the space bar down, I go to mesh display and go to harden edge. You can see if I click off of this and click anywhere off of here, you can see that the lines, it looks really bad. It's not soft looking. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control Z back, Control Z. Okay. And I'm going to select this. Okay, marquee, select it. Hold the space bar down, go to mesh display, and go to soften edge. Now I can click off the object, and you got nice soft edges. Now, the outer rim, you want those to be hard. You want this rim to be a hard edge, and that to be a hard edge, right? Okay. And this to be a hard edge. Okay. Sometimes you want square edges so it holds its shape a little bit better. Now the other thing I don't like is usually these types of plates have a bottom, okay? And this one really doesn't. It does, but it doesn't on the outside anyway. So we can leave it the way it is, or we can add a bottom to it. It's up to you. I'll just leave it. Makes it easier. And then the only thing left that we need to do is to create decorative spheres to put inside. So just click on a sphere and move it up. Okay. Now, before we do anything, we want to make sure that this is really high poly. Okay, that's too high poly for what we want to use this for, and it's going to be smaller. Okay, so let's click on the Polysphere 2, and let's turn subdivisions down to, let's say, instead of 20, let's do 12. Okay, and subdivision height, let's do 12. There we go. And at first glance, that looks terrible. Okay, but don't let that fool you, because it's still pretty good, and we can make it look nicer by softening the edges. So I'm going to go to edge mode. right mouse button, click over the object, edge mode, and select the whole thing. Hold down the space bar and go to mesh display, and you guessed it, soften edge. Now let's take a look at it, and it looks pretty good. There we go, even though it's low poly. I'm going to hit the Q key, and then right click over and go to selection mode. And let's go ahead and scale this down to the appropriate size for this bowl. And then let's just kind of get a little bit closer to it. I'm going to show you how to do to snap this sphere onto the surface of the bowl, because it's kind of hard to move it and get it just right. You can probably eyeball it, but it's a lot more fun to use a shortcut, which is snap to object to another object. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. Hit the Q key, and let's go to modify and snap align. Let's get snap together tool, and let's just look at the bottom here and click on the bottom, and we want it to go to this side over here. So I'm going to click on that, and I want you to hit the enter key, and it will snap it right onto that bowl, which is pretty cool. So let's go ahead and go to selection mode and do a Control D, okay, and move this one over kind of like this, and let's go ahead and move it up out of the way. And now let's go ahead and do the same thing. Hit the Q key and go to modify and snap together tool, and this side we're going to go on this side, and we're going to snap it right to there, and let's hit enter. There we go. Cool. And let's go ahead and go to the next one, selection mode, do a Control D, and let's move this one over here like that. So it's going to kind of not, just want it to barely touch that area there, and let's move that up. Okay. And let's go ahead and hit the Q key and go to modify, snap together, and this time we're going to go to the bottom here, click on that, and we want it to kind of snap to this part right here and hit enter. There we go. Just kind of line these balls up. Let's say they're probably going to move around, so I'm going to move this one so it just barely touches that other ball like that. It looks pretty good. And that is your scene. So with all the tools that you know how to use so far, what I would like you to do is create, because I already showed you how to do a bowl, why don't you create some glasses using the extrude tool by creating it with a cylinder. Okay? Use the same exact tools that you created the plate with to create some glasses to fit around the table. Let's make 4 of them. Okay? So you'll do that on your own, and I look forward to seeing how all your modeling looks. And another thing that I use all the time, especially when I'm doing low poly modeling, is I want to have my poly count showing. So I'm going to go to display, okay, heads up display, and I'm going to turn on poly count right here. And you can see it shows up here. So it shows you how many polygons are in the scene so far. Okay, so it's I got 844. So if I click on an object, let's say this object right here, I'm on selection mode, it will tell me how many faces that object has. Okay, how many faces and edges. Okay, and when I select something else like the tabletop, I need to make sure I'm in the selection, object selection, so I'm going to click on that up here. So if I click on the table, it shows that I have 6 sides and 844 altogether so far in the scene. My spheres are 144. My my decorative dish is 120. my, you can see my chair all together if I select the whole thing. Let's see if I can select the whole thing. Holding the shift key. I have 262 out of 844. Okay. These are all low poly. I know the sphere doesn't look like it's low poly, but it is. Okay. There we go. Looks good, and from a distance looks perfectly round. All right, so you're not really quite done yet. We've got one more thing is to put everything together. I'm going to make my glasses and have them in here when we come back. But this is the end of this video. So we'll see you in the next video in just a little while.